What if I told you that the most detailed nutritional prescription in human history isn't in a medical textbook, isn't in a sports science journal, and wasn't written in the 20th century? What if the food protocols that modern biochemistry is only now beginning to validate were recorded in a text that most people have been reading for spiritual guidance without ever noticing the medicine hidden inside it? Most people have no idea that the Bible functions, among other things, as one of the oldest and most specific food records in human history. Not metaphor, not symbolism. Specific preparations, specific combinations, specific instructions, and when you run the compounds through modern analysis, the biochemistry is there every single time. I'm going to show you 20 of them. 20 biblical meals and foods, chapter and verse, with the science that explains exactly why each one worked. Stick around because number 2 was so significant. The text recorded it twice in 2 separate books of Scripture, and the active compound in that healing preparation is now being studied in cancer research. And number 1 is the only meal in the entire Bible where a precise 6-ingredient recipe is prescribed. Modern sports nutritionists are replicating that exact formula today. Most of them have no idea the recipe is 2,600 years old. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring that bell. We post new videos every week, and this is the kind of content you don't want to miss. All right, here are 20 biblical meals that will heal you, ranked from remarkable to absolutely miraculous. Number 20. Salt, the covenant mineral. Every grain offering brought to the temple required it. Leviticus 2:13 is unambiguous. Every grain offering you present to the Lord must be seasoned with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offerings. The phrase covenant of salt appears 3 times across the Old Testament. In the ancient Near East, sharing salt was the deepest binding agreement that existed. Its absence from an offering wasn't a culinary oversight, it was a theological failure. The word salary traces its etymology directly to the Roman practice of paying soldiers in salt. Every civilization that left written records also left records of salt as non-negotiable. What the biblical prescription maps onto is the modern understanding of electrolyte regulation. Sodium chloride governs fluid balance, nerve signal transmission, and muscle contraction. The distinction modern research increasingly draws is between refined sodium chloride stripped of co-minerals and unrefined salt containing magnesium, potassium, calcium, and trace elements. The covenant salt of Scripture would have been unrefined, mineral complete. Salt never got forgotten, but we forgot what salt is. The white refined powder in a commercial shaker is not what Leviticus was mandating. Get the real thing, unrefined sea salt or mineral-rich rock salt on whole food meals. Number 19. Quail, the wilderness recovery protein. Numbers 11:31. Now a wind went out from the Lord and drove quail in from the sea. It scattered them up to 2 cubits deep all around the camp. This is a specific account of mass protein provision in an acute survival context, and it maps precisely onto a documented ecological event. Massive flocks of migratory quail cross the Sinai Peninsula annually, flying low after crossing open water, exhausted and easily caught. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings depict quail hunting. The text was recording something real. Quail meat is high in complete protein with all essential amino acids and is a concentrated source of selenium, a trace mineral that functions as cofactor for glutathione peroxidase, the body's primary endogenous antioxidant enzyme. Quail also contains significant B12, iron, and zinc, the precise micronutrient cluster that addresses deficiencies that develop during prolonged caloric restriction. Research on acute recovery nutrition consistently identifies this combination as optimal for tissue repair and immune restoration. A population depleted by months of wilderness travel received, in a single provision, precisely the minerals their bodies were most deficient in. Quail disappeared from the Western table because industrial poultry production found chicken easier to scale. The nutrient profile didn't disappear with it. Number 18. Dried dates. The endurance food of the desert. The date palm appears more than any other tree in Scripture. Psalm 92:12 uses it as the central image of flourishing. Jericho was called the City of Palms in Deuteronomy 34:3. Dried dates were the primary portable energy food of desert travel, carried by soldiers, traders, and pilgrims as the caloric foundation of any journey lasting more than a day. Dates are a concentrated source of natural sugars, primarily glucose and fructose, delivered alongside dietary fiber that moderates the glycemic response. They contain tannins with demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties, magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins. Research on athletic endurance nutrition recognizes dates as a whole food alternative to commercial energy gels, with comparable glycemic response and a superior mineral profile. Dates never got forgotten, but we forgot the form. The date sugar, the date syrup, the processed date product. These are not what kept desert populations alive across thousands of miles. Eat the whole fruit. Medjool dates are the closest modern variety to the ancient cultivar. Number 17. The vine. 200 references and a longevity compound. The vine is the most referenced plant in all of Scripture, over 200 appearances across both testaments. Greek and Roman physicians applied grape leaves to ulcers and infected tissue. In traditional Lebanese and Turkish cuisine, stuffed grape leaves survived as both food and medicine simultaneously. The wilting process in brine increases the bioavailability of the tannins and polyphenols they contain. Grape leaves contain quercetin and camphorol flavonoids with documented anti-inflammatory and antioxidant mechanisms. Resveratrol, concentrated in grape skins and leaves, activates sirtuin pathways associated with cellular stress response and metabolic regulation. The tannins in grape leaves have been studied for effects on gut barrier integrity. The vine, the ancient world revered above all plants, contains compounds that modern biogerontology is now studying seriously. Use the whole fruit skins intact, not juiced. The bioactive compounds are in the skin. Industrial processing removes them. Number 16. Carob, the forgotten pod of the prodigal son. Luke 15:16. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Carob was the food so humble it marked the prodigal son's lowest point. But the carob tree was cultivated across the Mediterranean for at least 4,000 years. Its seed was so consistent in weight it became the original unit of the carat, the precision standard for gold and gemstones. Greek and Roman physicians used it for digestive complaints. A pod humble enough to feed pigs was also the botanical foundation of precision measurement. Carob contains inositol, a carbocyclic sugar, with clinical research examining its role in insulin sensitivity and hormonal regulation. Its condensed tannins inhibit alpha amylase and alpha glucosidase, slowing post-meal glucose response. Research on carob's galactomannan fiber content has found significant associations with LDL cholesterol reduction. Carob disappeared from Western food culture because cocoa became the dominant substitute, and no one made the case for the pod the prodigal son couldn't afford. Carob powder needs no added sugar, it's naturally sweet. Use it where you'd reach for cocoa. Number 15. Goat's milk and curds. Abraham's table and the fermented dairy of the patriarchs. Genesis 18:8. He took curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. The curds are listed first, before the meat. Fermented dairy was the preserved, stable form of milk in the ancient Near East. In desert heat, fresh milk spoiled within hours. Abraham served his most honored guests the most health-promoting form of dairy that existed. Goat's milk contains primarily a 2-beta-casein rather than the A1 variant dominant in modern commercial dairy. Research shows a 1-beta-casein is cleaved during digestion into a peptide associated with gut inflammation in sensitive individuals. A 2-casein does not produce this cleavage. The fermentation adds a probiotic matrix that modern gut microbiome research associates with immune modulation and reduced systemic inflammation. The commercial dairy industry built itself on A1 cow's milk because high-volume breeds were easier to farm at scale. The fermented goat dairy Abraham served never got forgotten, but we forgot it was a different food entirely. Cultured goat kefir, goat yogurt, aged goat cheese, the fermentation is not optional. It's what transforms it. Number 14. Coriander, the seed that described the bread of heaven. Numbers 11:7. The manna was like coriander seed and looked like resin. The reference point chosen for the most mysterious food in Scripture was a specific seed the original audience immediately recognized. Coriander was found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. The Ebers Papyrus from 1550 BC lists it for digestive complaints. In Ayurvedic medicine, it has been prescribed for inflammatory conditions for at least 3,000 years. Coriander seed contains linalool, a terpene alcohol with documented anxiolytic and anti-inflammatory properties, studied for its effects on GABA-A receptor pathways, the same target as benzodiazepine medications, but without dependency. It also contains quercetin, which inhibits histamine release and suppresses inflammatory cytokine production. Clinical research has shown reductions in LDL and triglycerides with coriander seed consumption. Buy whole coriander seed, toast lightly, and grind fresh. The volatile linalool content degrades in pre-ground commercial products. The ancient world didn't reach for this seed incidentally. The mechanism we now know was real. Number 13. Almonds, Aaron's rod and the nut of watchfulness. Numbers 17:8. The staff of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds and produced blossoms, and it bore ripe almonds. The Hebrew word for almond shakt comes from the root meaning to watch, because the almond is the first tree to blossom in Israel, sometimes in January, before any other sign of spring. The menorah was explicitly designed to resemble an almond tree in full bloom. Jacob sent almonds to Egypt among the finest products of Canaan. This nut was woven into the sacred architecture at every level. Almonds are a concentrated source of vitamin E, specifically alpha-tocopherol, protecting cell membranes from lipid peroxidation, with clinical trials showing significant reductions in oxidative stress markers. Their magnesium content is a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including glucose metabolism and ATP synthesis. Research consistently shows LDL reduction, improved insulin sensitivity, and reduced post-meal glucose response when almonds are consumed alongside carbohydrate-containing foods. Almonds never got forgotten, but we forgot the portion. The skin contains most of the flavonoid content, whole raw skins intact back to the handful. Number 12. Barley bread, the grain of the poor and the healer's grain. John 6:9. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many? The detail that the loaves were barley is present only in John's account. Barley was the grain of the poor by cultural convention, but Greek Olympic athletes trained on barley porridge. Hippocrates prescribed barley gruel for fever and convalescence. Medieval monasteries prescribed it for the sick. This wasn't the poor man's grain, this was the physician's grain. Barley's primary bioactive compound is beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that forms a viscous gel in the digestive tract, slowing glucose absorption and decreasing LDL cholesterol reabsorption. The FDA has approved a health claim for beta-glucan from barley for heart disease risk reduction. Regular consumption is associated with significant LDL reduction, improved insulin sensitivity, and prebiotic effects supporting Bifidobacterium species. The pharmaceutical industry couldn't patent barley, so it synthesized cholesterol-lowering statins and sold those instead. Whole hulless barley in soups and stews, or barley flour for bread. The beta-glucan content is highest in minimally processed whole grain. Number 11. Leeks, onions, and garlic, the Egyptian medicines the Israelites mourned. Numbers 11:5. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. They wept for garlic in the wilderness. Herodotus records that pyramid construction costs included expenditures on garlic and onions for the workers, not filler, but functional medicine. The Ebers Papyrus from 1550 BC lists garlic in 22 separate therapeutic formulas. Garlic contains allicin produced when garlic is crushed, triggering a lionase to convert alliin. Clinical trials have shown allicin reduces blood pressure, lowers LDL, and exhibits broad-spectrum antimicrobial activity. Onions contain quercetin in high concentrations, suppressing inflammatory cytokine production through NF-kappa B pathway inhibition. Leeks contain camphorol and organosulfur compounds. Together, these three plants target overlapping inflammatory pathways that no single compound reaches alone. Crush garlic and let it rest 10 minutes before cooking. That allows the alliinase reaction to complete before heat inactivates the enzyme. The Israelites missed them so much it made them cry. The biochemistry tells you exactly why the body knew what it was losing. Before we keep going, if you're still with me, 11 items in, you're exactly the kind of person Healing Harvest exists for. You're not here for the surface reading. You're here because the science keeps confirming what the text already said. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and ring the bell so you don't miss where this list ends up. We're building a community of people who refuse to accept that ancient wisdom is outdated here at Healing Harvest. Let's keep going. Real quick, I want to pause here because a lot of people watching ask me, this is all great, but where do I actually get these foods in a form that isn't adulterated? That's the right question. Most commercial olive oil is cut with cheap seed oils and has never seen a cold press. Most honey is heated, filtered, and stripped of every enzyme that makes it functional. Most barley products are so processed, the beta-glucan content is negligible. Most coriander sitting in a commercial spice jar has been ground for 18 months and the linalool is gone. So I did the research. I found the sources I actually trust for real extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil, raw unfiltered honey, whole grain barley, genuine unrefined mineral salt, and heirloom seeds if you want to grow any of these yourself. I linked them all in the description below. Scroll down, check the description. Now let's get back to the list because the final 10 are where this gets extraordinary. Number 10. Unleavened bread. The Passover Gut Protocol. Deuteronomy 16:3. For 7 days you are to eat bread made without yeast. The removal of leaven is commanded before the Exodus begins preparation, not commemoration. Every particle of chametz removed from the house. 7 days, annually, categorical. The ancient Hebrew world treated leaven as a process of corruption that fundamentally changed something. That instruction maps onto something modern gut research is taking seriously. Commercial bread yeast does not break down gluten proteins during short modern rise times. Research has identified unmodified gliadin proteins in commercially leavened wheat as capable of triggering zonulin release, transiently increasing intestinal permeability. Unleavened bread undergoes no fermentation, the simplest grain preparation, no gluten modification, no FODMAP accumulation. The modern bread industry built itself on fast-rise commercial yeast and refined flour because speed and shelf life were more profitable than gut function. The 7-day protocol, not just the food, but the duration, is worth considering for exactly what it was: a reset. Number 9. Bitter herbs. The commanded medicine at the Passover table. Exodus 12:8. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs, and bread made without yeast. The bitter herbs maror are commanded alongside the lamb. Chicory, endive, horseradish, dandelion, every candidate is a documented medicinal in ancient herbalism. The Passover prescription pairs bitter herbs specifically with roasted lamb, a fatty, protein-dense meat. From the perspective of digestive physiology, that pairing is precisely correct. Bitter compounds activate taste receptors distributed throughout the gastrointestinal tract, triggering the cephalic phase digestive response. Increased bile production, gastric acid secretion, enhanced pancreatic enzyme output. Dandelion root contains taraxacin and taraxacerin, studied for hepatoprotective effects and bile flow stimulation. Chicory contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that selectively feeds Bifidobacterium species. Bitter greens got forgotten because the Western palate was industrially trained towards sweetness across the 20th century. Eat dandelion, chicory, and endive before or with protein-heavy meals. The ancient prescription was simultaneous with the meat. The physiology explains exactly why. Number 8. Pomegranate. Temple architecture and the highest antioxidant load in the ancient diet. 200 pomegranate sculptures decorated the tops of the two great pillars at the entrance to Solomon's temple, recorded in 1 Kings 7:18-20. The hem of the high priest's robe alternated gold bells with embroidered pomegranates. They carved it into stone. They embroidered it into the sacred garment. And inside it was the highest antioxidant load of any fruit in the ancient diet. Pomegranate contains punicalagin, a hydrolyzable tannin unique to pomegranate, among the most potent antioxidant compounds found in any food. Punicalagin is metabolized by gut bacteria into urolithins, which research has shown to activate mitophagy, the cellular clearing of damaged mitochondria, with implications for aging biology and muscle function. Clinical research has demonstrated blood pressure reduction, LDL oxidation inhibition, and antioxidant capacity measured substantially higher than red wine and green tea. Big Pharma couldn't patent punicalagin, so it synthesized antioxidant supplements with a fraction of the bioavailability and sold those instead. Use the whole fruit. The arils contain the full compound matrix. The ancient reverence was not aesthetic, it was accurate. Number 7. Roasted lamb. The Passover preparation protocol. Exodus 12:9. Do not eat the meat raw or boiled in water, but roast it over a fire with the head, legs, and internal organs. This wasn't a general instruction. This was a specific prohibition against boiling with a specific mandate for dry roasting whole, organs included. The text anticipates someone might boil it and explicitly rules that out. The Maillard reaction preserves the complete amino acid profile of meat in a form more bioavailable than water-extracted proteins from boiling, where water-soluble nutrients leach into the cooking liquid. Including the organs was not incidental. Liver contains more retinol per gram than almost any other food, and heart and kidney contain CoQ10, B12, and heme iron at concentrations muscle meat cannot match. This wasn't ritual and nothing more. It was a preparation method developed over generations of watching what produced the best outcome. Get the whole animal. Roast it over dry heat. Number 6. Lentil stew. The meal worth a birthright. Genesis 25:34. Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. The Hebrew nazid indicates a thick, slow-cooked preparation. Lentil cultivation in the Fertile Crescent predates recorded history 9,000 years of documented use. Hippocrates considered them strengthening food. Lentil soup appears in Egyptian, Greco-Roman, Byzantine, and medieval Islamic medical traditions without interruption. Esau wasn't primitive. He was hungry, and his body knew exactly what it needed. Lentils contain approximately 18 grams of plant-based protein per cooked cup, complementing grain to produce all essential amino acids together. Resistant starch and soluble fiber ferment in the colon to produce butyrate, the primary fuel for colonocytes, with documented anti-inflammatory effects on the gut lining. Their glycemic index is among the lowest of any carbohydrate-containing food. Lentils disappeared from the Western table because industrial food culture treated them as poverty food. That was a mistake. Slow-cooked whole lentils with olive oil. The preparation method preserves the resistant starch content that rapid cooking degrades. Number 5. Locusts and wild honey. The wilderness nutrition of John the Baptist. Matthew 3:4. His food was locusts and wild honey. Two foods, no cultivation, no commerce. Locusts are explicitly listed as permitted food in Leviticus 11:22, one of the very few insects designated as clean. Wild honey, not domesticated, not processed, was the premium wound healing and antimicrobial preparation of the ancient Near East. Dried locusts are approximately 60 to 70% protein by weight, with a complete essential amino acid profile and zinc levels that compare favorably to beef. They contain chitin, a fiber with prebiotic and immunomodulatory properties. Wild honey retains methylglyoxal, glucose oxidase, defensin 1, and polyphenol profiles from local plant sources that commercial processing destroys. Studies on raw honey versus processed honey show dramatically greater antimicrobial activity in raw preparations. The commercial honey industry heats and ultrafilters because uniform product is more profitable than functional product. What remains is essentially sugar syrup. Get raw, unfiltered wild honey. The man preparing the way for the central figure of the Christian tradition was running on two wilderness foods that nutritional science is now studying with serious interest. Number 4. The 7 species. The Promised Land as a complete dietary system. Deuteronomy 8:8. A land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey. In the ancient Near East, a land was defined by what it produced. These 7 species were the agricultural and medicinal foundation of Israelite life. The Promised Land was not described by its scenery. It was described by its medicine cabinet. Together, the 7 species cover every major protective mechanism modern nutrition has identified. Oleocanthal from olive oil inhibiting COX enzymes. Beta-glucan from barley protecting cardiovascular function. Punicalagin from pomegranate activating mitophagy. Resveratrol and quercetin from grapes activating sirtuin pathways, physin and pectin from figs supporting gut health. Research on the Mediterranean dietary pattern, which mirrors the 7 species, shows reduced all-cause mortality and reduced cardiovascular event rates across multiple large-scale studies. The industrial food system replaced this dietary cluster with refined grains, seed oils, and processed sugar. Eat the 7 species as the ancient diet assembled them, together, as a pattern. The combination matters as much as any individual compound. Number 3. Olive oil. The Good Samaritan's pharmacy and the ibuprofen of the ancient world. Luke 10:34. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. The Good Samaritan's immediate response was to pour olive oil not symbolically, but as first aid protocol. Every Mediterranean and Near Eastern medical tradition that left written records used it therapeutically. He reached for it because it worked. Olive oil's primary bioactive compounds are oleocanthal and oleicein, present in extra virgin olive oil and largely absent in refined versions. Oleocanthal inhibits COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes, the same mechanism as ibuprofen. The stinging sensation at the back of the throat from high-quality extra virgin olive oil is caused by the same molecular pathway triggered by swallowing liquid ibuprofen. This wasn't metaphor. It was the same mechanism. The Predimed trial documented approximately a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events with extra virgin olive oil supplementation. The pharmaceutical industry patented ibuprofen and sold that instead. You can't patent a plant. Buy cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. The throat sting is the test. If it doesn't sting, it's refined. Number 2. The fig poultice. The healing of Hezekiah across 2 books of Scripture. 2 Kings 20-7 and Isaiah 38-21. Both record the same instruction. Prepare a poultice of figs. Apply it to the boil, and he will recover. This is the only healing prescription in the entire Bible recorded verbatim in 2 separate books. Hezekiah is at the point of death. Isaiah delivers a death sentence, then returns with a reversal, 15 more years of life, and the specific medicinal preparation accompanying that reversal is a fig poultice. The double recording is the text marking something as important. The fig contains physin, a proteolytic enzyme that breaks down proteins, including the fibrin matrix forming the wall of a boil or abscess. Applied topically, Ficin breaks down the protein structure, encapsulating a bacterial infection, facilitating drainage and resolution. This wasn't random, this was the mechanism. Figs also contain benzaldehyde, studied in laboratory research for effects on cancer cell proliferation, and rutin, a flavonoid glycoside that strengthens capillary walls. Fig poultices for boils appear independently in the Ebers Papyrus, in Roman physician Celsus, in medieval Islamic medicine, and in European folk medicine. Every tradition with access to fig trees arrived at the same preparation. That's not coincidence. That's observation converging on mechanism. The book was right. Number 1. Ezekiel bread, the only divinely prescribed recipe in Scripture. Ezekiel 4:9. Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt. Put them in a storage jar and use them to make bread for yourself. 6 ingredients. Chapter and verse. The only moment in the entire Bible where a precise multi-ingredient recipe is prescribed. The context is a siege ration. But the formula prescribed for survival under siege is, nutritionally, among the most sophisticated grain preparations that existed in the ancient world. The Ezekiel formula produces a complete protein. Grains are individually deficient in lysine. Legumes are deficient in methionine. Combined, as this recipe describes, the 6 ingredients complement each other to produce all 9 essential amino acids. Protein complementation, a principle formally described in the 20th century, practiced empirically here 2,600 years earlier. The formula also provides beta-glucan from barley, resistant starch from lentils and beans for butyrate production, and the B vitamin matrix of whole millet and spelt. Commercial brands sell this exact formula today. Most consumers know the name. Almost none know the reference is to a specific verse in a 6th century prophetic text. Most sports nutritionists replicating it have no idea the recipe is older than the Roman Empire. Ezekiel bread never got forgotten, but we forgot what it was. Get the genuine formula, all 6 ingredients, whole grain, traditional fermentation. The formula was given once, precisely, for a reason. So there it is. 20 meals, 20 verses. 20 times the biochemistry was already there, waiting for the instruments to catch up. The book was right. The allicin was in the garlic. The oleocanthal was in the olive oil. The ficin was in the fig. The complete amino acid profile was in the 6-ingredient formula. The people who wrote this down weren't guessing, they were watching. Generation after generation, watching who healed and who didn't, watching what worked in a wound. They accumulated that watching into text and passed it forward. We received it. We stopped reading it for what it contains. Modern science is translating it back. Which of these 20 surprised you most? Was it the fig poultice appearing in 2 books, whose active compound is now in cancer research? The Ezekiel formula sports nutritionists are replicating today? The olive oil that shares a molecular mechanism with ibuprofen? Leave it in the comments, I read every single one. If you want the real versions of these foods, genuine extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil, raw unfiltered honey, whole grain barley, unrefined mineral salt, the links are in the description below. And for seeds, if this video lit a fire in you to grow some of these yourself, I've linked to the heirloom seed sources I recommend. The biblical garden is not a metaphor. It's a garden. You can plant it. If you haven't subscribed to Healing Harvest yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building something here at Healing Harvest, a community of people who refuse to accept that ancient wisdom is outdated and industrial processing is progress. The book was right. Go live like you believe it. See you in the next one.